Mr. Sinwar's death yesterday can provide an inflection point to getting there. Hamas is in a much weakened position than it ever was before. Sinwar was the main obstacle to getting a ceasefire done. Every time his political advisors we'd negotiate with and through them to come up with a proposal, it would have to get to him. He would just refute it and refuse to move forward. We also believe that Mr. Sinwar's death yesterday can provide an inflection point to getting there. I mean, look at what the Israeli Defense Forces have been able to do against Hamas. I mean, they've really decimated their leadership, now knocking out the top leader himself. They have, without question, completely eliminated any immediate threat that Hamas would pose from a military perspective. They've knocked out the military command structure. They've gone after weapons caches. They've made it much more difficult for Hamas to operate and act, plan and execute the way they did on October 7th. So Hamas is in a much weakened position than it ever was before. But yes, Sinwar was the main obstacle to getting a ceasefire done. Every time his political advisors we'd negotiate with and through them to come up with a proposal, it would have to get to him. Of course, that took time because of the communications challenges, and then he would just refute it and refuse to move forward. And it's not as if, as I've said this before, it's not as if the Israelis weren't willing to continue to find compromises, and they did. Each and every time, Sinwar found a way to stop it. Now he's gone, so we'll see. I mean, Hamas obviously will make their own decisions about what their structure is going to look like and if and who might replace Mr. Sinwar. But yes, his death does provide a unique opportunity here to try to take advantage of where we are with Hamas, where Israel is with Hamas, and see if we can't get a ceasefire in place. As I said, the leadership decimated, military structure decimated, but they still are a presence in Gaza, and they still do have some capability. So we're certainly going to be watching that carefully. And I've seen some statements out of them today, basically pledging to continue the conflict and continue the war. They are in such a dramatically weakened position. It's difficult to see from where we sit that they could perpetrate anything close to what they did on the 7th of October. But that doesn't mean that they aren't still lethal to some degree. And so we're going to have to watch that carefully. Well, look, the ceasefire talks have been moribund now for several weeks because Mr. Sinwar simply refused. And I wish I could tell you today that we're getting the teams back together in Doha and we're starting afresh. That's not where we are right now. I suspect, again, I don't want to speculate, but I suspect that if and when we can get those talks back in place, the starting point will be where we left it. Where that goes, I just don't know. We're not in a position right now where serious negotiations are in the offing.